Hello, friends. Today I'll tell you a story about a man who vanished without a trace. A story where nothing was broken, nothing was stolen, and yet someone simply disappeared. This is the story of the vanishing of Daniel Harper. The vanishing of Daniel Harper. Daniel Harper was a quiet man in his mid-30s, living alone in a small town that most people would never remember on a map. He worked at a local library, spent his evenings reading by the fireplace, and was known to neighbors as polite, meticulous, and completely harmless. But one evening, everything changed. It started with a phone call that no one ever answered. On a chilly autumn night, Daniel was supposed to meet a friend for dinner, but he never showed up. His friend tried calling. The line rang endlessly. Text messages went unread. By midnight, a creeping unease settled over those who knew him. The next morning, Daniel's front door was slightly ajar. Neighbors thought perhaps he had simply left it unlocked by accident, but the mail stacked outside told a different story. His car was in the driveway. The lights inside the house were off. No sign of struggle, no overturned furniture, nothing stolen. Just empty silence. Police arrived and conducted a thorough search. They checked every room, every closet, every corner. Daniel's laptop and wallet were untouched. His bed was made neatly, as if he had gone to sleep and never woken. But his phone, his constant companion, was gone. Detectives scoured the neighborhood for witnesses. One neighbor recalled seeing Daniel walking his dog that afternoon, but the dog was alone the next morning, leash tangled and collar still on. Another neighbor remembered a van parked across the street. Lights off, doors slightly open, but by the time anyone noticed, it was gone. No license plate, no driver, just a shadow that disappeared. As days turned into weeks, strange patterns emerged. Security cameras from nearby stores showed fleeting glimpses of a man resembling Daniel, walking in areas he never visited. One camera caught him entering an abandoned building at the edge of town. Another, 2 days later, showed a figure matching his description, leaving in the early hours, carrying nothing and never turning around. Daniel's family described him as cautious and methodical. He had no enemies, no gambling debts, no reason to disappear voluntarily. His friends couldn't believe he would just vanish without saying goodbye. Yet the evidence suggested otherwise. Then came the oddest discovery: a small notebook tucked inside a hollowed-out book on his shelf. It contained sketches, maps of the town with certain locations circled repeatedly, and notes in his handwriting. Some pages were filled with strange symbols, indecipherable codes, and cryptic warnings. One line repeated over and over: "They are watching, always watching." Neighbors reported hearing noises from his house after he vanished. Soft footsteps, whispers, doors opening and closing without anyone there. One teenager claimed to see a shadowy figure in his window late at night. But when investigators arrived, there was no one. Surveillance footage later confirmed nothing. Yet the feeling of being watched lingered. Months passed. Police followed every lead. They checked abandoned buildings, rivers, forests, and even nearby towns. A few belongings of Daniel were found: a single glove in a creek, a half-burned notebook page in an alley, a shoelace tied in a knot with no apparent purpose. Each clue seemed to deepen the mystery rather than clarify it. Some locals whispered about a secret that the town had kept for decades, a story too dark to tell openly. Rumors circulated of strange figures seen at night, of people disappearing, only to be quietly replaced by someone no one noticed had changed. Daniel Harper, they said, may have stumbled upon something he shouldn't have. The final clue came nearly a year after his disappearance. A hiker found a small box buried in the woods outside town. Inside was Daniel's watch, stopped at precisely 11:47 p.m., and a voice recorder still functioning. When police played it, they only heard static at first, then a faint, breathy whisper. "They are close. I can't leave. Don't trust anyone. Hide." The recording ended abruptly, leaving investigators with chills and no answers. To this day, Daniel Harper has never been seen again. His disappearance remains one of the most confounding cases in the town's history, and so the question remains, what truly happened to Daniel Harper? Was he taken by someone or something, or did he vanish of his own will? Every unanswered question adds to the growing shadow of mystery surrounding his life. Some say they still feel him watching from the edges of the town. That in the silence between street lights and the rustle of leaves, in the whisper of the wind, Daniel Harper's story is still unfolding, just out of reach, just beyond understanding. Years later, the town itself began to change in subtle, unsettling ways. Street names on old signs no longer matched the maps. Buildings appeared where empty lots once stood, yet no one remembered their construction. Longtime residents argued over memories that no longer aligned, as if reality itself had been quietly edited. One librarian who replaced Daniel noticed something disturbing while reorganizing the archives. Entire weeks of town records were missing: newspapers, police logs, even weather reports. The dates matched the period shortly before Daniel vanished. It was as if time itself had been selectively erased. When she mentioned it to the authorities, the files were suddenly back the next day, perfectly intact. She quit shortly after, refusing to say why. Children began reporting imaginary friends with unsettling similarities. A man who watched but never spoke, who stood just outside the light, who warned them not to ask questions. Parents dismissed it as coincidence, until multiple children from different families described the same face. A private investigator, hired quietly by Daniel's sister, uncovered one final lead: a hidden sub-basement beneath the abandoned building shown in the security footage. It wasn't on any blueprints. Inside, the walls were covered in layers of scratched symbols, identical to those in Daniel's notebook. In the center of the room stood a single chair, bolted to the floor, facing a one-way mirror. Behind the mirror, nothing. Just darkness. But the investigator reported the overwhelming sensation of being observed. He left within minutes and never returned to the case. His final invoice contained a handwritten note at the bottom. "Some disappearances are not crimes, they are corrections." After that discovery, all official interest in Daniel Harper's case abruptly stopped. Files were sealed, officers reassigned, questions went unanswered. It was as if an invisible line had been crossed, one that could not be uncrossed, yet the town never fully forgot. On certain nights, exactly at 11:47 p.m., streetlights flicker in sequence, one by one, leading toward the forest. Dogs refuse to walk in that direction. Phones lose signal, and those who stand still long enough swear they hear breathing, not behind them, but all around them. Some believe Daniel didn't vanish. They believe he saw behind the surface, noticed the watchers, understood the pattern, and paid the price for knowing too much. Others fear something worse, that Daniel is still there, trapped between moments, forced to observe, unable to warn anyone clearly. Because the scariest possibility isn't that Daniel Harper disappeared. It's that he never truly left. And if that's true, then the watchers are still here, waiting.